Today's episode is sponsored by Codega's Bodega. If you guys want to get some clean merch, go to Codega's Bodega to support the community. And also to make a statement when you're going out on the streets, so you can let your weirdness be seen. The link will be down in the description below. Let's get to it.
What happened? Bear with me here. You ever seen in Marvel when Hulk was running really fast and was bouncing? Yes.
Was bouncing. Yes. Yeah. That's exactly what I had in mind, actually.
I argue that that's what they're saying right there. Is the spirit came upon this giant, because it's a Gilead, and he's from the zone of bloodline from the Nephilim. That giant got to run and was bouncing. Now, isn't that just crazy? Isn't that just a cool detail?
Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his Codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. I'm Rye, the Codega, and I'm here again with Adam Farris, a good friend of mine. And today, he is cracking open the Book of Judges. Yeah, that's the one full of wild stories, warriors, prophets, betrayal, straight up superhuman abilities and strength. But here's the one thing. I want you guys to listen closely. These judges, they weren't just like ancient leaders. Some of them sound a lot like the heroes or anti-heroes we see in pulp culture today. You know, I'm talking Marvel, X-Men, and even some of the darker mythic types. So while you guys are listening, I want you to think about this. Do any of these figures remind you of someone from our modern world of comics, movies, or even real life? So if you can relate any of them, I guys want drop a note in the comments. Say, I think this person, Samson, is like this, and I think this is like this. So I definitely want to know, who your Samson or Deborah would be in today's world. Okay. All right, let's get into it and welcome Adam to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. All right, Adam, welcome back. One of the many times back to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. Now, you've been on the show now twice. This is the third time. And of course, I don't think that this will be the last time. I think we'll see a lot of you coming back. Now, for those who haven't heard your previous episodes, we had David and Goliath, and then we had,
David's Mighty Men.
David's Mighty Men. Yes, thank you. I'm like, why did I forget that? But before we go into what are we diving in today, let my listeners and viewers know where they can find you so they can, check your stuff out as well, because you got some good stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you having me back on. Number three Pete. Adam Farris. Five Stones is on Amazon now. So that's where you can that's the e-commerce for the book now. My story 3 years ago, I got called to essentially share the good news in a non-conventional way. It started with a graphic novel of David and Goliath called Five Stones. Check it out on Amazon. I also got some really good some writings on Substack, eadamfarris.substack.com. And then on YouTube, just a little bit longer of my blogs, more detail kind of stuff like that. Adam Farris as well. Instagram too. I'm on there, so holler.
Awesome. Yeah, you got some pretty cool videos on YouTube. I know you've been messing around with some AI to and you're also like narrating them as well. I like it. I like it. I've took some of those videos that you made, some of those shorts, and I put them into our last episode there. But so you're here today. What are we diving into today? Because this is you kind of were teasing some things but I was like, let's just do this because I know you always bring your A game. Tell us what we're going into. What are we expecting today?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, quick answer: we're going to be talking about the Judges tonight, the Book of Judges, and who they are. Generally, everybody's familiar with Samson, and that's pretty much it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of where we're going to go. What this whole thing for me is, it's super organic. It started with David and Goliath, and I didn't know where it was going to go. But as I researched, you remember from the last shows, there's so much more. For lack of a better term, Nephilim, basically, and that's what I keep finding and can keep uncovering and enjoying to share, to kind of again to put a better perspective on biblical stories, a non-conventional way, and hitting it for exactly what it is. So now to start, you asked me two questions last time, and to go forward with tonight and anything else we go, they needed stronger answers. Nothing wrong with the way I answered it, but you know me, I like scriptural evidence, not just.
Okay, so that you need okay, I asked you two questions.
Mm-hmm.
I've asked many people questions. What were those two
Oh
questions?
man! So the first one was basically the connection between Nephilim giants and and you know Gibberim and whatnot. So for tonight to make sense and everything else, you know, we got to tackle that. And right off the bat, Gen 6, it says in Orthodox Jewish, it's Ha Nephilim. That's where we get the Nephilim from, and it's the fallen ones came down. The King James version is sons of God. So you know that's where we get sons of God, wives from human women and whatnot, and it's giants or Gibberim. But when you look in the Bible, there's no evidence of angels actually being giants. And sons of God is the language that God uses for it to make sense to us. You know, Father in heaven, sons of God. The difference with humans is we are Ha Adama. We are from the earth. And they are well, that group was Ha Nephilim, fallen ones, sons of God. So I got to digging, and angels are only mentioned to be maybe a little bit taller than humans, attractive, looking like men, but not quite, and that's it. So where do the giants actually come from? And I wanted that again. That's the question you ask, and that needed to be answered more solid. You know, just in general. Exodus 33. So in Exodus, and I'll some of these bigger stories I'll summarize for things to make sense. So Exodus, everybody's familiar. Moses, Egypt, Promised Land, all that. Well, Moses was just a human dude, just he was called to do this crazy phenomenal thing, and he stumbled a lot, as we all
And
do.
he stepped up. He stepped up.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. So at one time specifically, he's like, I'm doing all this stuff. Can I see you? Can I see you? Can you let me know that this is 100%? And so the answer was, you can't see my face because it's the righteous power and people can die, and that's excuse me, the crazy spiritual side of that. But again, you got to take all these stories with the supernatural. And that's why we're starting with these questions so everything can make sense. So God says, there's a cleft in the rock near me. I'll pick you up, I'll put you in the cleft, and I'll cover you with my hand. And when I walk by, I'll move my hand and you can see my back. You can't cover a human with a human hand, right? He didn't say covering your eyes, he said, I will cover you. Now, how did we start this with sons of God? That's the Nephilim bloodline, is God's bloodline. That's why Gen 6 was so horrible, because that was these supreme beings, genetics being passed into humans. And how? So every time you look at a scenario in the Bible with angels, they they will go to that person, but when you read it, it's talking like God is there. And the person responds to it like God is there. And they even freak out. Like, I just saw God. I'm going to die. Doesn't say, I saw the angel of the Lord. Something's going to happen to me. Right? So, what I look at it to break it down for this whole thing to make sense is angels, sons of God, or just manifestation of God's spirit. And that's why they can go back and forth and change in between time and dimensions and whatnot. And that is why that was so significant, because that was a for lack of a better term, a promised righteous bloodline, completely unnatural, right? So that's where the giant would come from, is from actual gods and sons of God. The second question you asked me was, it was about the Gibberim of why. What was the purpose of, you know, all these giants joining up with David, and what did they do? The short answer is, this entire thing's God's story, and anybody that is tapped is to help tell that story. The different people in the different times to do different things, but essentially that's what's happening. So for the Gibberim, they were tapped to help King David become king, right the ship with Israel, get rid of the Amalekites, form raiding parties to push out the bad guys and all that stuff. So that's why, um, you know, in their different scenarios, they joined in with David. You know what I mean? So that was the point of them. The reason I'm saying that is because the judges tonight are exactly the same thing. Tracked, all of them come from Nephilim bloodlines, and they are being tapped to help Israel out in really tough situations. And they're essentially superheroes, if you will. So the Nephilim bloodline, I need to explain it. There is effects, and then there is intent. We we talk about effects. That's what I bring to the table. That's my research, is effects. How far did it go? Who else was affected? The intent is the devil and evil and, you know, end times and stuff. That's not my lane. So what we focus on is, angels came down, and how far, who many, you know, how many people, and can we find the evidence of that? So that's why I'm bringing to the table tonight the judges, because it's a whole nother group of people that come from those bloodlines and do mighty things. So that's what
Cool.
we.
I'm hooked. I'm in. Let's do this. Now, in the beginning you said Samson. And so for those who don't know, Samson was so was he was of the god bloodline then, is what you're saying.
Mhm. Yep.
And he was incredibly strong, incredibly powerful, but I believe that was tied to his hair, correct?
Oh, that we're gonna get super deep on that one. He
Okay, so then we'll stop there then, and we'll get there. We'll get there.
Because yeah, that has everything to do with it, and I do it. I'm doing it in order, from the Bible, just so I don't trip over myself. So we get Samson at the end, and the hair thing is a really really crazy part to it. So it's pretty wild. So, um, to set the pace for this, so you've got Genesis, Exodus. Everybody gets out of Egypt. Leviticus, Deuteronomy, they're trying to set up rules and regulations and be a people. You know, they came from slavery, and now they're like, okay, well, now you just have to exist. Well, how do you do that? You know what I mean? Like, you got to figure out food and, you know, all that crazy stuff. So, um, Joshua, well, Exodus gets up to the promised land conquest, and that's when the book of Joshua comes in. And they get into the promised land, and only one tribe is called to die completely, the Amalekites. And we've talked about that before with five stones. Is they're the lickers of blood. They come from Esau, and they're uh vampirist, you know, shape-shifting kind of people, really nasty. They're the only ones that actually are called to die. Everyone else,
And what was that? And what was the name of that group again? What
the
were they?
Amalekites.
The Amalekites. Okay.
Yeah, lickers of blood. They're some nasty fellas.
So not to get too sidetracked,
Mhm.
when you're saying like vampiric, are they truly, were they of the vampires? Is that maybe where these vampires, these myths, or these legends of vampires arose from?
So if you look at it, as a completely, excuse me, black and white, can it happen or can it not happen? It is said many, 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 many times, you you cannot drink the lifeblood of an animal. Cannot. Lifeblood, not blood, the lifeblood. right? Because things are different, right? The understanding is completely different. So what would happen to an entire line of people if they lived off the lifeblood of animals? They're going to change things are, we know that if you have blood, you ingest blood, it can change you. Think about that being, you know, your society and your culture. So yes, these were there's so many different accounts of them like destroying Israel, terrorizing Israel, taking and killing. It is non-canonical, which is not me, but they are accepted non-canonical as being lickers of blood and very violent. So were they hanging upside down in a castle? No. But they were eating and drinking blood and changing because of that. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Let's get back on track here.
Absolutely. No, you're good. So yeah, so the rest of them, essentially the calling was for them to be rid of the land. And I believe it's safe to say that the promised land was probably post flood Eden, and the bad guys knew it, and that's why they were congregating there. And then, without God spilling the beans on purpose, was like, just get them out of here. You know what I mean? Well, there's a reason why. Well, coincidentally, once, through Joshua, once they get in there, they cohabitate. A lot of them don't go. And that's how the Nephilim bloodline, the effects continue. Because all of those promised land tribes come from that. They're the giants. They're the Hittites, Amorites, Jebusites, all that stuff. So Judges starts, um, and they took their daughters to be their wives and gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their gods. So they absolutely cohabitated, commingled, started getting into paganism and doing all that crazy stuff with the Canaanites and all these crazy tribes. So the point in Judges, it's really wild. It's almost Promised Land is probably the best way to say it. The point was no king, no government, no taxes, none of that crazy stuff. It the reoccurring theme in Judges is everyone was doing what was right in their own eyes. A temple was set up, and they had Levitical priests for any situation, stuff like that. But you basically just existed and lived. And that was the point we talked about it last time. God was so insistent, like, you don't need a king because you're going to be governed. You don't want to be governed. And then, here we are still still being governed. But so what would happen is a new king would get a wild hair, or an invading land would come in and decide, hey, we're going to take these people because word got through. You're familiar with the story of the 12 spies, right? I would think we kind of went into that.
We did a little bit, but do you want to just touch on it just very so quickly in case
Exactly. Really,
someone
really.
hasn't heard that?
Yeah. So the 12 spies, before they got to the promised land, went out and checked out and saw everything. And that was the first report of giants that came out. What we understand is they got in and got out secretly, but they didn't at all. So a lot of judges in situations in the book of Judges are kings that heard what was happening, heard that the spies were coming through, and they attacked proactively. So it's kind of crazy that this little tribe, I mean, humans essentially got in and saw giants, and giants freaked out, and everyone starts talking, and they were trying to take out Israel. So we'll start with Othniel, the first judge of Israel. Now, we did mention him before, so I'm not going to be redundant. I'll have new details on him, but excuse me, he's essentially a violent lion of God, is what Othniel means, is translated. Now, Othniel is the son of Kenaz, who is the brother of Caleb. When they got into the promised land, Moses couldn't enter. He got everybody up to it, and then Joshua and Caleb, the baton was passed, and they got in and finished the conquest. Caleb is translated as dog or unsophisticated servant. So that's the first time we see some animalistic humans in the tribe of Israel. and we're going to break down Israel on one of the other guys too. But we start to see some more animalistic features in these guys. Why? because they got into the promised land and they cohabitated and commingled with the bad guys that were living there. That was the point. And this is again is the effects of Nephilim. How far did it go? So the so in Joshua 15:17, Caleb drove thence the three sons of Anak, Shisha, Ahiman, and Taimon, the children of Anak. So the Anak giants, Joshua gets in and gets those guys specifically out and runs them out. And there's a land called Deborah, which was formerly called Kirith Sefer, which is the land of scribes. Sefer is Jewish mysticism. So that's kind of, yeah, it was the land of scribes, mysticism, magic. When they were conquering that land, Caleb said, all right, anybody that can go in here and conquer this gets my daughter's hand in marriage. Othniel goes in and conquers the town himself. So there's a few examples in the Bible of that. A lot of them we talked about with the Gibberim, David's Gibberim. And you got to take that for what it is. Because if it was a battle, it would say battle. This is literally a dude going in and conquering a town himself. Again, more effects. The violent lion of God. So when he goes in, they conquer it, gets the hand of marriage, and the kind of story goes on a little bit from there. Now, Othniel has a brother, Sariah, and Sariah is the father of the valley of Cherishim, for they were craftsmen. So that's like they were cherish is to engrave, to craft. So it's like you didn't always get to be a giant. Sometimes you had different skills, you had different abilities. So Sariah, the valley of craftsmen, and wherever that went. And then last thing on Othniel, if you remember from last time, David, some of his Gibberim were singers, which is super odd.
Yep.
But
Yes, I remember that.
yeah, well, Othniel was so established that he formed his own, because that's kind of how things would go. You would get your own area, and you would be like a mini town. Well, Heldai the Netophanite comes from Othniel, so that's kind of that continued on with him and all that. So that's the first judge of Israel, violent lion of God, able to conquer a town himself. And what he did essentially was a king came in and put Israel under 8-year rule. They cried out to God and they were like, please help us, please help us. And he's like, all right, there's a dude down there I can work with. And it says the Spirit of God came upon Othniel, and that's when he conquered that land. So that kind of is, to touch base on Samson for a second, that's how the judges work is you 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 have some special abilities, and it's different every time, but God will come upon you, the Spirit will come upon you, and then crazy things will happen. So kind of wild how that
All right.
works.
It is. It's kind of like a blessing. You've been blessed, and then you get these. Or I think a lot of times that in this day and age, we have a lot of stories, comics to say, that kind of explain a little bit of this, like mutants. It's like this mutant ability all of a sudden manifests, and it could be like from God. It's this presented ability, and then they're able, and like you said, they're different. Everything is kind of different, which kind of seems similar to that as well. Like I really feel that a lot of like our pop culture, movies and whatnot, really tell us a story that we need to pay attention to. It's not just a surface level. We have to go deeper.
Well, Gen 6:4 says it's the stories of the men of renown, men of old. And if you just look at that, you just take a step back, that means that all of these crazy stories over time, this is where it comes from. So then, of course, we've all talked about this before about where the ideas of comic books and story and superheroes comes from. Well, yeah, it's just this continuance of these crazy stories, of these phenomenal feats that happen in some place. So, all right, number two, and this is going to start getting a little wild. So real quick with the tribes of Israel, I need to jump in on here and give some context to that. So the Christian faith is Father in heaven, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, some certain people during their journey, their name was changed. Abram became Abraham. Specifically, Jacob becomes Israel. He has 12 sons, and those 12 sons become the 12 tribes of Israel. Some of them were good, some were not. And if you remember from our last show, the tribe of Benjamin, a lot of David's Gibberim came from the tribe of Benjamin. Coincidentally, a lot of the brute force comes from those guys. And it's just really wild to, I mean, these are stories that aren't really told, definitely not told the way that we're telling them. So it's just crazy to, you know, you think of, Jesus comes from, he's the lion of the tribe of Judah. So Judah is one of the 12 tribes, and that's the tribe of David and Jesus. So it's like this phenomenal track, but then you look at the other ones and all this crazy stuff that was going down. It's just wild. But so this next guy, Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjaminite. Now he's a man of left hand, which anything that's in the Bible is significant, no matter if it sounds like it or not. A few people are mentioned as left-handed, and they're not just like, well, Adam was left-handed and blah. It's like, and he was left-handed. You know what I mean? So it's like a big, big, big deal.
Something you need to focus on. Like it's not mentioned. I mean, small things shouldn't be mentioned. Something of notice, something of importance is mentioned. Okay,
Yeah.
so and what does that really mean? Does it mean he was left-handed, or is there something greater to this?
They look at that as special abilities and coming. The insinuation is kind of what I'm saying. The effects of the fall that's where this would come from. Not a normal person. To the effect of everything is on the right hand. The priests are blessed on the right toe, the right thumb, and the right ear. Like it's like, you know what I mean? The right hand of God. Like it's a thing. So left was like weirdo left hands. Yeah. So now he killed King Eglon of Moab. And we'll talk about him in a second. But an average sword per Google is 24 to like 32 ish, 38 ish, depending. Normal sword. Ehud was able to hide a, cubit length dagger on his thigh and snuck it in when he saw the king of Moab. Cubit, 18 inches. Like I said,
That's a fair size dagger that you're trying to hide on your thigh. Like
and successfully hit it. Not tried to hide it and they caught him on the way in. So again, you got to take the supernatural with everything we talk about. That's why I started the show with explaining, what this all means. Those are extremely significant details, just like the left hand. So this dude had an 18-inch long, because the cubit, roll cubit, we talked about that argument. What if we're wrong and it was longer? So that's a big fella. We can accept he's a big fella, right? You got big old long legs. Um, Crazy part is he's the son of Gera, a Benjaminite. So it goes Benjamin. Benjamin had a son named Bela. Bela had a son named Gera. Now, in Gera's sons, Ehud is not mentioned at all in the genealogy. Now, excuse me, in the Bible, there's patterns of why things happen and why they don't. If you are mentioned, but not, if somebody's name is omitted, it's for a reason. They come from genealogy that they're not going to put in the Bible, and whatever that means, and it means something different every time. So he's the son of Gera, but he's not listed as a son of Gera, which is really interesting. And it hit me, and I'm like, okay, well, there's more to that because they don't make those mistakes, right? They didn't forget to mention one of our sons. So when they do mention, the next thing it says is, and these are the sons of Ehud, semicolon. These are the Rashi Avot of the inhabitants of Geba, and they drove them out to Manachat. Rashi Avot, loosely translate, is heads of the family, or founders. So it's basically saying that Ehud was son of Gera, but not by the correct genealogy, so he's not listed, and the anybody that came from Ehud was rid from Gebel, and the only people that got rid from lands were the Canaanites. So Gera, even though he is a son from of Ehud, the son of Agera, he's not proper genealogy. That's why he's got big old long legs. Nephilim effects. See, and it might sound like word salad. Forgive me, but these are crazy. If you put all these details together, and that's the point of tonight. I went through all these judges and found all these different random things about them, so we can figure out who they are. You know, and what does that look like? Big old boy, and they don't even put his actual genealogy in the Bible.
It's not even, they don't even feel it's worth it, kind of thing, almost in a way.
Well, no, it's on purpose. So and just like last time we talked about the sons of Zariah, that's David's sister, and no husband or father's mentioned on purpose because it's not. And that too, actually, oh my gosh, is a great example of that. I'm gonna put a pin on that because there's another judge that explains that better. So, so then at the end of that, they killed 10,000 men of Moab, monumental battle, and so next we've got Shamgar, the son of Anath. And this is really interesting. So he goes Ehud and then Shamgar. The reason I say that is because whenever the pattern is, I'll read it. After Shamgar, it says, and the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord when Ehud was dead. After Shamgar. Every other judge, it says just like that when Ehud was dead, or when Samson was dead. Doesn't mention anything about Shamgar. This guy we're going to talk about next was like he was used at a specific crazy battle, and that was it. And it's a really wild example. So it's literally just a line of this dude. It says he slew the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad, and he also delivered Israel.
With a what? With an ox goad? What the heck is
Yes.
that?
So ox goad is a really, really long staff that you would goad your ox into the just steer them from side to side
Okay,
into the pen.
okay.
So this fella, and I think I think the way that they do that when they don't even mention him, because that's what happens is when the judge dies, Israel goes back to doing bad stuff, and then something happens. It's a roller coaster, the Book of Judges. I did not mention at the beginning, and I'm gonna do it now. The actual translation is Shofetim. So we get the translation judge. It's not judge by any stretch. No one actually does any judging. They're all not even a ruler, because sometimes you get that translation. That's not a good one either. They're basically a protector. When I feel like, again, when everyone's doing right in their own eyes, God is using these super people to like as bumpers. You know what I mean? And then
To keep
once,
people, to almost keep people in line, kind of thing. It's
yes,
okay. So yeah, at first I was thinking that they were some sort of like not a king, but some sort of ruler or superior or judging. But it makes sense when you're saying no. These are kind of like, I don't know, keep people in line, kind of thing.
yeah, I
Which is kind
mentioned,
of ridiculous, though. Like when you're saying this, I'm like, as soon as there's like no judge, it's like, woohoo, all hell breaks loose, almost in a way. And it's like, okay, we got to bring someone in again. Like, aren't these the people of God? Aren't I have a general understanding that what's right and what's wrong, but it's almost like they need like a warden there. Like,
mhm.
yeah, that would be the best description, would be a warden to keep them in line and maybe to also protect them at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean you gotta respect the idea behind this because like we all like hate on government now, but like literally had an opportunity to live like that and just was just wrecking it and tearing it up. And essentially what they were saying what would happen is they would you got to look at what the other gods obviously lowercase g, what they were promising. You know what I mean? And that's the sin part, and that's why Israel, it was just an up and down, because like God's like, just live a good life, don't go crazy, enjoy life, but live a good life. And then the Nephilim are like, oh, just go crazy, crazy debauchery, just do whatever you want, and then pass your child through the flame, and it's like, come on, you can't, come on. So yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, so Shamgar, the son of Anath, ox goad. Now he now in the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the roads were abandoned, and the travelers walked the byways. What that is what I mentioned earlier about the 12 spies.
Yes. Yep.
That's what happened, and that's why I brought that up. So in the days of Shamgar, being the bumper and the guy that kept everybody straight, they didn't take the highways, because what happened in Numbers was they wanted to take the king's highway. They wanted to take the straight way through. So they went to the first king, King Edom. They're like, "Can we go through?" And he's like, "Nope, I'm bringing war." And then they that's when we get King Og and King Sion, because the same thing. So like the word got through, so they just met him at the door and were like, "You can't come through." Ended up dying. You know the story. So that's how that ties that together. So it's word on the street is these Israels with this powerful God are coming through, you know, and then everybody was just trying to take Israel out constantly. So that's to back the judges thing. Now, 12 tribes of Israel, like I said, going forward, the rest of the Nephilim effects come from the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, because there's 12 tribes. So Benjamin was a lot of the David's Giberim. Um, a bunch of Zebulun and Naphtali are the judges. So it's just kind of crazy to see, you know what I mean, how far this thing went and what it did to the different tribes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
now, and where we get Shamgar, he's the son of Anath, and Anath doesn't have any like real genealogy. He's not in the Bible at all. But what I did find is that um, the tribe of Naphtali didn't drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, and the Canaanites inhabited, and then they did not drive them out from Beth Anath. And Beth Anath, Bethlehem, um, Beth Shemesh is land of. So Beth Anath is land of Anath. And any of the lands from the promised land with a name like that, and that's genealogy. So that's kind of where what I got from Shamgar is he came from some guy from the promised land, and that's why he was able to kill him with the ox goad and crazy stuff. Next, Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, with Barak. Now this story is pretty crazy. So really quick, something kind of interesting, and I don't put a lot of credence into it, but so it says Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, but in Hebrew it's Eshevet Lapidoth. Eshevet generally used means woman of. Lapidoth means fire. So wouldn't it be wild if it was actually Deborah, the prophetess, the woman of fire?
That's a little. That's a little. Yeah.
I've
A
read
little more magical. A little bit crazier. You know.
I've read some of those arguments. I don't put a lot of faith in that, but I just thought that was kind of cool. So essentially, she's just a prophetess, and they are under a rule again. Ehud died, and then everyone went crazy, and then King Jabin pops his head in and tries to take over the land, and he has a Hittite general. Now, Hittites we know are giants. We already know that. And have you seen I guess it's carvings, the wall depictions of the Assyrians in chariots with no horse driving them?
I have not.
I'll have to send you those. So there are some depictions of that where there are like crazy chariots and there's no horse driving it. So the whole ancient aliens thing, of course they call it like, oh, you've got some crazy power, motorized. The only reason I bring that up is because Sisera, the Hittite general for King Jabin in this story of the Judges, he is noted as gathering together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron. Significance is this is a book of Judges. It's still the Bronze Age. The Iron Age doesn't take an effect way on down the road till Samuel when we catch up with David and Goliath. That's the significance of the Philistines and the Sea People, because that was the end of the bronze, beginning of the iron, and the Philistines were like noted craftsmen. So they just coming in, making armor, and just decimating. So this dude, way, 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 and this is like thousands of centuries. You know what I mean? That's how the Bible goes. Had of all his chariots, he had 900 iron chariots.
Okay.
And then
So
again,
this is before the time of iron.
way. And anybody, realistically, because there's always exceptions to every rule, anybody that would have known iron, it would have been super, super scarce. It would not have been 900 iron chariots. So read into that what you will, and that's why I brought those depictions up, is because a lot of these guys, the bad guys, they get portrayed as Assyrians. They kind of come from like Assyrian Mesopotamia, Syria kind of thing, but they're not all connected. So that's just a little wild detail. Now, the crazy part, a few crazy parts of this story is not necessarily Deborah or Barak, is so Deborah gets the word to she goes to Barak and says, "Hey, God says you are to take warriors from Zebulun and Naphtali, and you're gonna take out Jabin and Sisera. And Barak is supposed to be this super, rugged general, and he actually comes from. Uh, I found his genealogy. He comes from Kadesh Naphtali, so he is part of this brutal tribe of Israel. He chickens out, and he's like, nah, I'll go if you go, literally. And she's like, all right. And this is a super cool, like, feminine moment. It's an awesome story. She's like, cool, but you will not win this war. This war will be won by women's hands. So when you read that, you're like, oh, Deborah's going to go in and kick butt. It is so much better than that. So when I was reading about Shamgar, and I mentioned in the days of Shamgar and the days of Jael, the roads were abandoned. So that line comes from the Song of Deborah. So so it's crazy. After the battle, after they win, um, this is really long. It's a couple pages. The Song of Deborah, and that's when they're talking about JL and all this other wild stuff. So the way that this thing goes, they have this. So they get 10. Is it that 10? They take 10,000 men. So 30,000 men of Zebulun and Naphtali go to battle. And it says that they are men of war. Specifically, they take that many men of war to battle. They trick Jabin and Sisera, and they get them split up. Sisera sees Jael, just from the Song of Deborah. Jael is a Kenizzite. What's crazy is in Genesis 15, way at the beginning, before all this stuff went down, right after the fall, right? Genesis 6, Gen 15, the first three tribes that are mentioned are bad that have to go are the Kenizzites, and the Cadmonites. Now, the Kenizzites we talked about with Kenaz and Othniel, and they are the hunter of men. Kenizzites are the people of the spear. And there's a lot of intermingling with other Canaanites. So Sisera, the general, the Hittite general, sees Jael uh, and up there by her tent, and he runs up and he's like, "Hey, can you hide me? All this crazy stuff's going down. Can you hide me?" She's like, "Yeah, yeah, come on in, lay down, take his blanket. You want some milk?" And she goes to get some milk. He's laying down, passes out. She takes a tent spike, watch out, right through the temple. Right through the temple. So that's the prophet, the prophet prophetical message that the battle will be won by a woman's hands.
Okay, and so here's me falling back into pop culture again, or something along that line. Is we look at Lord of the Rings. They had the Witch King of Angmar was prophesied to not be killed by a man, and of course he was killed by a woman in the book, which is kind of, I don't know. I'm just, like I said, I like to tie in some pop culture to some of these things as well, because I find that there is truth in so many ways. It's kind of written down twice in a way.
Yeah.
But yes, continue on.
Yeah.
Continue on.
So JL, real quick, is means mountain goat.
Okay.
Yes. The crazy part, man, if you want to research the Bible, check the names, because people weren't named Adam because it was a cool name. Like, they were named physical features or something crazy happened in someone's life. So there's power in names. So next is Gideon. Now, Gideon, this part of the story of Gideon is a familiar story. You may have heard of the walls of Jericho. They surrounded the walls, and they blew trumpets, and the walls fell down. Well, yes. So now Gideon.
Now, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to touch on the walls of Jericho at all? That type of what happened.
We're gonna
It
make
definitely
that.
sounds like some sort of. Yeah, go ahead.
We're gonna make that make more sense.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, that is what I get the most joy out of doing with this crazy research, and hopefully not too boring details, is finding out like what it really looked like, and making sense of these phenomenal stories, but you know that there's more to it, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. There's way
So
more to it.
so we got Genesis 6, and then we've got Gibberim, right? And that's why I wanted to start with those questions, because what is giants? Where did giants come from? What's the significance of that? And Gibberim is the most important part there. So Gideon is the son of Joash, and Abiezerite. He's just a dude just living his life. And excuse me. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him and said unto him, "The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor." In Hebrew, that is Gibor HaShavel, mighty man of valor. So Gibborim just states the bloodline, doesn't state the intent. Gibor HaShavel is good from that line. So Gideon is a person that coincidentally came from the effects, and is recognized as being able to be used. Right? So now, let's see. So he comes to him, kind of freaks him out. He's not sure what to do. He asks for a couple. He asks for some signs and help me out, and show me. So he gets a couple tests, but then God comes back and was like, "All right, you tested me. I'm testing you. I need you to go down." And this is the whole walls of Jericho thing. He says, "Take all your men, and I'm gonna figure out who you're taking to war. Take all your men down to water, and who lappeth the water as a dog will be your army." So this is some more animalistic
Okay.
features. So of all his men, 300 of them, when they get to the river, jump without hesitation like a dog and start drinking water out. God's like, "There's your people right there." So again, trying to make this make more sense. What is, like, when you read that, it's like, oh, so they're just unsophisticated weirdos. Is that the case, or
Is
is
that
it
the case, or do they actually have some tie to actual dogs? Yes, dog
right?
men.
So again, I believe Dave Goliath, Gibberim, the judges. That's what this whole thing's about. Is the flood was to get rid of everything, and then God promised, "I'm not going to do that again." So if it was
Yeah,
me,
correct, correct.
it would be like, all right, well, you know what? I'm gonna use some of these guys then. You know, I can work with that because it's in the heart. That's all it is. Just because you coincidentally come from the Nephilim bloodline didn't necessarily mean you were going to be bad. It,
Yes, yes,
right?
I agree with that completely.
So yeah, so he gets tapped. He goes in. He gets the 300 men that lappeth the water, and then in the battle, so they do the walls of Jericho. Now you think about that when these are possible giants are bigger than average people. So when they did the whole walls of Jericho thing, doesn't it put more emphasis on the vibration and how that actually worked than just dudes blowing horns? Because that's essentially what happened. But then after that, more feats of Gideon to kind of get us an idea of who this dude is. He beat down the tower of Penuel himself and slew the men of the city. Beat down this entire tower himself. And um, when we talked about the real kings, remember we talked about kings and Nephilim and all that stuff.
Yeah,
While he is battling the two kings of Midian, Zeba and Zalmunna, they were fighting somebody, and he's asking them. He asked, "What manner of men were they whom you slew at Tabor?" And they answered him, "As thou art. So were they. Each one resembled the children of a king." So yes, exactly. They're telling Gideon, "Oh, they look like you. They look like the child of a king." What else would that mean? Or what could that mean? You just look like a child of a king? No,
yeah. There's something so much more to that. You know, you have that royal bloodline running through you, or that bloodline. I don't say royal. I hate that. So we'll say you have a bloodline running through you. Of probably in that area is like the Nephilim bloodline.
exactly. Right? So you start really kind of getting an idea of what's going on in this book. You know what I mean? All right. So,
But
um,
and sorry, the walls of Jericho. Are you thinking like when they blew these horns of the walls of Jericho? Is it like a vibrational frequency that they're able to resonate with the walls that hit that exact frequency? Such as like I've seen that when it was I think there was a singer, I can't remember which one, who hit the exact frequency of the glass and was able to rupture the glass. You know, is
mhm.
that kind of like the theory of what that is?
Yeah. So, of course, I'm not going to take anything away from the spiritual part of it, of course. But that's my point in all this. And I think that's why these people were tapped of what was possible. So say that they are, just for this sake of conversation, say they were giants. Gideon clearly was. And the 300 men that lappeth the water like a dog weren't just completely human. So if all of that was again circling a building, and the story goes that they had a torch in one hand and the horn in the other, and they threw the torch down and blew the horn, and that's when everything went down. To me it gives more credence, right? It makes it that much more of a stronger story and an understandable story. Not taking anything away from it, but can't we agree that there's more to it? You know?
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So yeah, that's that. So then the next one is Abimelech, and he actually was a king. We're not going to go too far into him because he was the son of Gideon, and he was really bad, and he killed all of Gideon's sons, and then he ended up getting his back, uh, killed him on a rock, and it was just a whole crazy story. Real bad dude. So the next one, Tola, the son of Apua, son of Dodo, a man of Issachar. The hard part with him, it wasn't a whole lot there. So what I had to go by was he dwelt in Shamir in Mount of Ephraim. Ephraim was one of the tribes of Israel, was a two-parter, Ephraim and Manasseh, and they were really bad and they did a bunch of bad stuff. And he came from Ephraim. So And he's not really credited to doing a whole lot either. And that's the significance. If it was a big battle, it would be in there. If not, he probably was just scaring some people or whatever. So, but now we've got Jair, a Gileadite, and the next one's a Gileadite. There's more on the next one, but the Gileadites, that is uh, conquered promised land, part of Bashan, part of King Og's area. And David had Gileadites as well in his Gibberim. So they are confirmed giants from the Amorite country. And specifically, Jair, when he judged on the side of Jordan in the land of Amorites, which is in Gilead. So he was kind of regulating the giant area and giant population. Why isn't that talked about?
Good point. I don't know. Why
Right?
isn't it?
So, but this one is better. And this is the part that I told you I was going to put a pin in and get back to it. So Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty man of valor, and he was the son of a harlot, and Gilead begat Jephthah. Now, he is Gibor Hashavel, just like Gideon, so he is a good giant. Now, the son of a harlot thing, I love breaking the translations down. In Hebrew, it's actually Zona. Zona refers to a woman who has had sexual relations with someone she is prohibited from marrying, even if she was not a prostitute. So in the
Okay.
yes, so in the translation, they see the prostitute part, and that's where they go with harlot. It's a miscommunication. That is a woman
Yes.
that
Yeah.
has hooked up with somebody you're not supposed to hook up with. That is Gen 6. That is the foundation of Gen 6. So how did it continue happening? That's how. And just like Ehud earlier, when his genealogy is not tracked properly, that's why. So and that was the pin I wanted to put in, because that is the perfect example of what happens, why you shouldn't do it. You know what I mean? The consequences of.
Yeah. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't.
So in his feet, this is crazy. So in the Bible, sometimes when I see something crazy, I'll just find a phrase and see how it's used in different situations to kind of get a better idea of it. So if we were to say he passed over, um, it would be like city to city or state to state, right? Adam passed over Virginia, went to North Carolina, stuff like that. So his feat is, then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. He passed over Gilead and passed Manasseh, passed over Mizpah of Gilead, from Mizpah of Gilead, passed over unto the children of Abram. What happened? Bear with me here. You ever seen in Marvel when Hulk was running really, really, really fast and was bouncing? Yes.
Was bouncing. Yes. Yeah. That's exactly what I had in mind, actually.
I argue that that's what they're saying right there. Is the Spirit came upon this giant, because it's a Gilead, and he's from the Zona bloodline from the Nephilim. That giant got to run and was bouncing. Now, isn't that just crazy? Isn't that just a cool detail? Like, isn't that wild?
Yeah. Why? Yeah. It's terrible that these things get overlooked and they just get kind of like not focused on, because we're focused on these other things, and it's like, no, like we really should know the full truth. He they this guy was jumping like the Hulk, man. He was bounding and leaping. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Ibzan of Bethlehem. We only got a few more guys going. Ibzan of Bethlehem. Now, we were mentioned earlier with Bethanoth. Bethlehem means house of war, and Bethlehem is one of the conquered promised.
And it's not, sorry, it's not Bethlehem, right? It's Bethlehem.
Well, yeah, it's that one Bethlehem.
Okay,
It's
so
the
it's the Bethlehem
Mhm.
where Jesus was born.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So these are, again, man, these are the crazy details. Like when That's why the Promised Land conquest is so crucial and so important, because they got in again and they didn't rid all these people out. They just conquered these lands. And essentially, a lot of them became tributaries. We talked about before, was just forced labor. So that's how the big buildings were being built. So, yes, Bethlehem was there. You know what I mean? It's House of War. And that's where Ibsen of Bethlehem comes from. Now, the crazy part with him is he had 30 sons, 30 daughters, whom he sent abroad and took in 30 daughters from abroad for
What?
his sons. Yes. Yes. And he judged
Man,
Israel seven
he's
years.
getting around.
Yes. So, what is so significant of that guy? Literally, it doesn't, again, was it a big battle or was it not? There was no battle mentioned with him. That's all, is that he was just cross pollinating all over the world.
Like Genghis Khan, right? You
Dude,
know, the Khan DNA is supposed to be through so many people, but yeah.
yeah. So then we've got Elon, a Zebulonite. So you remember earlier the men of war, the Zebulun and Naphtali. Well, one of them became the actual a judge of Israel, and Elon, translated, means oak tree. So the big boy, and then again, he doesn't have a whole lot of feats with him. He was just one of the judges, and he got him through. Abdon, the son of Hillel, a Pirathonite. David had a few Pirathonites too. Pirathonite, translated, is confederation of little pyramids. Yes. And Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Pirathonite, died and was buried in Pirathon in the land of Ephraim, mentioned Ephraim earlier, in the Mount of the Amalekites.
And the Amalekites were the ones that were terminated because they're the bloodlickers. Now let's go back to this little pyramids. Is it because they're little people? Or what is the reason for these little pyramids? Why are they from the land of little pyramids?
Exactly. So they are Gibberim. So they are big. They are giants.
Okay, and Gibberine are big. Okay, so the pyramids look little because they are giants. Is it's the reverse? I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
So the giants are. I mean, the pyramids are normal, and it's just that the people are bigger.
Yeah. So that's just crazy how, like, again, you've got the judges and you got these crazy stories, but then later on in David's story, he's got Pirathonites as part of his Gibberim cleaning up the land. So it's just like it's all super connected. And that was the crazy part. We talked about it. How this started for me was I started with this one book, and it's just connected everywhere, and it's just all this wild stuff.
You got all these red strings everywhere. You know, these little push pins and these red strings everywhere connecting everything.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right, so we're gonna get to Samson now. Big old
let's
Samson.
do it.
So, and there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bare not. That is our answer to Samson, who Samson is. So the Danites is one of the tribes of Israel, and the children of Dan sent their family 5 men from the coast, men of valor from Zorah, and of and the coast of their inheritance was Zorah, Eshtaol, and Ishramesh. So Zorah again is promised land conquest, leftover area, and the Danites got some of that land, cohabitated, and then produced men of valor, men of war.
Okay,
So what's it?
and just sorry, going back to the wife or the mother, it said that she was barren. Does that mean like she could not have kids? Is that what that is implying?
Yep, could not. And that is a significant point too in the Bible, because a lot of time, most times, something significant, it was from a barren woman. Like
Okay,
most
okay,
of them, Abram, like it's like all the way down to, so to make it is more significant. And angel of the Lord came upon them, told them, gave them the instructions, and and they, again, this is an example like we used earlier. When they talked to that angel, they didn't talk to the angel; they talked to God. The message was delivered to them specifically, and this is the crazy tie-in. So if you go with me on the Zona and Azora, I should say, and the Danites and the evidence there, the angel comes to them and says that you will have a child. However, he is to be raised as a Nazarite, and it's a very specific diet. No wine, no crazy stuff, no fermented nothing, and his hair cannot be cut. So if you take just those parts of Samson, right? He's a Nazarite, he has to have a special diet, and his hair can't be cut. I mean, it sounds, it's okay, but that is so open ended, right? I mean, we can all agree that there's got to be more to that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
argue
exactly.
that is there's behind the scenes things about humanity that we don't know. We can agree, right? We don't know how our body
Yeah.
works.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's many things that there are, mysterious, like some things we do, but there's other things that we don't, like upon conception when there's that instantaneous light as well. It's like, well, why is that? Why do certain things happen and we don't have answers for it? And sometimes it's okay.
Yeah. Like it says in the Bible specifically, like God says, don't mix fibers, on your clothes, on your skin for clothes. The guy's got to be more than that than just like don't mix fibers. You know what I mean? Like there's something that we don't know.
There's something about it. Yes.
So what I argue is the bloodline that his father comes from, and that's why it says a certain man of Zorah. Instead of just saying his name, Bob, from Zorah, blah, it's a certain man of Zorah, right? Of the Danites. You go through and you look at the evidence of all those guys. I think that is how. So from this bloodline, if you follow this diet and you don't mix all this stuff and you don't cut this hair, then somehow spiritually that continues a certain strength. More than what I can, you know what I mean? So and if you follow Samson, he trips on that diet, right? He in part of it. So part of let me back up and explain Samson. So Samson, we talked about this before. Samson on face value seems like he's a superhero and he's saves the day and it's a great story. It is not. It is not. He is definitely an anti-hero like Tony Stark. Completely.
Really? Okay.
1,000%. So he the story starts he they get the instructions for his diet. He's grown. He's a young adult. He sees a woman in the Philistines that he wants as his wife. And they're like right off the bat in the story. And they're like, and this folks are like, well, you can't, we got an angel of the God said you can't do that stuff. What they didn't know is that's how Samson was being used. So he went to the Philistines. It didn't work out, and he ended up killing a bunch of the Philistines, like 600 Philistines. So he was a battering ram, and he kept tripping over females. Like God bless him. So he is on his way to a banquet because he's trying to marry this chick, and a lion attacks him. And it says the Spirit of God came upon him, and with his bare hands, he subdued and killed the lion. So on his way back later on, he ended up seeing the lion dead, and it's crazy. The carcass is open, and bees have gotten in there, and there's a little beehive. Well, he reaches out and gets the honey, and he's eating the honey. And this is the vampire thing we were talking about earlier with the lifeblood. He is specifically not allowed to touch dead animals, be around dead animals, eat it, nothing. You cannot enter your body. And he does. So then he starts, it starts going going bad for him, basically. And then so every time he goes to these events, he's essentially backed into a corner from something dumb he did. The spirit comes upon him and he just lays out 800 Philistines, 600 Philistines, whatever the case is. So his story goes, Delilah tricks him, and he finally tells her, well, I can't cut my hair. Shave his head, take him out, and then that's when he's in prison, gets his eyes cut out.
Yeah, they blind him. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he asks for one more hurrah, like please God, just one last time. And that's the spirit comes upon him again, knocks the towers down, and his story ends being sacrificed to just demolish Philistines. So it's not like the superhero, like the good guy story. It's just like this, I would argue, this brute that doesn't know his own strength and gets very cocky and arrogant and doesn't respect his own power, basically. And then kind of that's just the way it goes for him. So
That's a very like typical story that you hear for a lot of, like, we'll say a lot of heroes' journeys. You know, there is like this anti-hero journey where they're almost like this bully, and they should be doing something good always, but they keep messing up, and they keep messing up, and in the end it's kind of like he sacrifices himself one last time, for the greater good, maybe, I don't know, but yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's the list of judges. And again, now having some more context, now we see why it's the Shofetim, it's the rulers, the people to keep everybody safe, and hopefully everybody can see more effects of the Nephilim and how far this thing actually went. And it wasn't just the fall in and this and the devil and the crazy stuff. It was spread out all the way across the land. A lot of people didn't know it, and then things would come up. Angel would come upon them like, "Hey, I need you to tap in. I need you to do some crazy stuff."
Jeez. And it's crazy though. Like, going back to Samson, like, they gave him this list of things that, it's kind of like to keep him in line. He can't do this, he can't do that. It's crazy. It's almost like this robotic features that you can program into it, and if it you can corrupt it if you do any of these other things. I don't know. Maybe like the gremlins, don't feed it after midnight. Don't feed them after midnight, and don't spill water on them, otherwise you're in for a really bad time. And that seemed to be what happened, just kept on getting corrupted more and more. And Samson's dear to me because growing up, that I had a kid's book of Samson, actually, and I remember reading that every other night kind of thing. And I never delved much into it. I just saw the story, and I always felt bad for Samson because he was tricked, and he lost his vision, he lost his eyesight, and he lost his hair. But then his hair, in the story that I was told, was that his hair did grow back, but they didn't know, they had left him in a mill, and he was just working in a mill constantly grinding, whether it be grain or something.
Mhm.
And finally his strength had all come back to him because he had grown his hair back, but he was blind. And yeah, then he destroyed the temple, as one last hurrah.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, like these heavy details that don't connect to anything. Like it does. Like it doesn't. The further I get into this, that's not the way the Bible goes, right? Like if it sounds crazy, it's going to connect to something. It's not just like they weren't sure what to say here, or they misspelled it, or they heard it wrong. Like it's so for go ahead.
Do you feel that, because I was talking with Chris Fox, an author, recently, and we were talking about like the oh my gosh, what is the pineal gland? We're talking about the pineal gland because that is like your spiritual kind of access, maybe your third eye. How it's like closed off, it's shut off right now. Do you feel that maybe that third eye was the access point to deliver possibly these special abilities, and then now it's closed off? It's kind of like, and I've always been saying that I think we're governed as a species. We're governed. There's something limiting us, and I mean governed as in like a governor on a car doesn't. You're not allowed. You can't go past a certain speed, even though it has the potential to. There's something holding it back. Now maybe this is it. It's like this key point that we have in our pineal gland that is closed right now, and nothing can be activated, so we can't hit these superhuman abilities.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the hard point I was arguing with Samson, because I don't with this, I don't ever want it to sound like I'm speculating crazy, or I'm pulling strings, or I'm just trying to connect stuff, because that goes against what I feel like my calling is. So yeah, like it is absolutely significant for a certain man of Zora's son from a barren wife to not drank alcohol, to follow a specific diet, and to not cut his hair, because nobody else gets that calling. Nobody else in the Bible, because like literally, it says it a few times that God made wine on purpose because it makes men happy. So he wouldn't be like, except you. You know what I mean? Like it's for a reason. And cutting of the hair, only other time that that's mentioned is basically don't follow Canaanite ways where they were like shaving sides of their head and doing face tattoos and stuff. Like it says it specifically. So it absolutely, again, I mentioned the cotton thing. Like all of that, I argue we don't know how far our bodies can go. Dog, if you can take supplements and spend 2 hours in the gym and get huge, that's the tip of the iceberg of what these bodies can do. I swear. If you can change your vert and all of a sudden jump 3 feet in the air, yo. So yes, that is how we have to take these stories of these weird details is, yeah, plain and simple. And the whole third eye thing, way many moons, probably, goodness gracious, 20 some years ago. I was on my own little, I want to, I guess this, but I didn't know it 20 years ago. And I was reading about chakras and third eyes and that stuff. The thing about third eye is if you focus on it, you can feel a tapping. Is how the thing goes, if you know that you've connected with your third eye or whatever. And I remember thinking that I might have felt something, but you know how that goes. Well, I was on a guy's trip one time, and just because of everything, I was super relaxed, and I was laying out on the beach, and I was looking at the water. And I was like, you know what? I wonder if it has something to do with relaxing. So I tried to do the whole thing again, and man, it was just a ba, 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 tapping.
Really?
No, I didn't leave my body. I didn't. Nothing crazy happened, but I felt it. That's me. If I can see the scripture, if I can see it, I believe it. So yes, again, to answer your question again, yes, our bodies are wild, and all of the judges, all the Gibberim, all the giants in the Bible, special abilities, 1000%.
Well, fantastic, Adam. I want to say thank you so much for bringing it. I sitting here and I just listen and take it all in because that's what I do on the show. I bring on guests who are well educated, well researched, or who've had their own experience, and I just try to take it all in. And just like my viewers and listeners, hopefully something sticks. You throw it you throw shit at the wall, and something's gonna stick. So I'm hoping to be able to myself. This is my research, is having you on and listening to all this and being like, okay, now I'm a little bit smarter. Maybe I'm 1% smarter than I was before this episode started. And heck, by the end of all these episodes, maybe I might be able to just have a half decent conversation with everyone else.
Yeah, I hear you. Dude, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for the opportunities to run my mouth, man. It's bigger than you can imagine. I really feel like, I'm being put in places that I need to be. So very much appreciated. And everybody that listening, thank you very much. I know at some points it might sound like a word salad. I get heavy on details, but I feel like you gotta be to really understand these people. And I mean, I sit for hours and hours and just see how far I can figure out what this guy looks like, and you know what I mean. So
Awesome. No, and that's so important, and that's like, we all can't do that. Like, some of us are going to be looking at this thing, some of us are going to be looking at that thing, and that's why we need people like you. We need people like, my friend Brad. We need everybody just to dive into their own thing and to bring the answers all together. And so, I want to say thank you, Adam, for doing that, for spending the time, your time, looking into this for us, because that's what you're doing. And, so everybody knows where to find you. Where are they going to find you one last time?
yes, Instagram, Adam Farris, YouTube, Adam Farris, eadamfarris.substack.com is my writing. And Five Stones is on Amazon. I'm gonna get you that link, so you can throw it on
For
there.
sure.
I'm super excited
Yeah. So
about that.
that'll be That'll all be down below. Anybody who hears Adam saying these things and you're like, oh man, I couldn't write it down. Don't worry, just check the show notes, and leave a comment. Tell me what was your favorite part. I want you guys, listeners or viewers, to tell me what was your favorite part of this all. Who was your favorite judge? Were they a mutant that I was talking about, in relation to, like, can you say, well, this one sounds more like this mutant, or this sounds like more this pop culture icon that we see? Because I think a lot of these pop culture icons are modeled after, men of renown and everything else from our past. We're just recycling it and making it new and shiny.
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. There's so much evidence that wild, wild beings were crawling across this earth, man.
Oh, 100%. All right, Adam. Thank you so much for spending the time again. So thanks a lot.
Yep, appreciate it.
All right, everyone, that's going to do it again for today's episode. And I want to say a big thank you to Adam for coming back and, exploring these wild parts of the Bible with me and with you guys. This time it was the Book of Judges, which is, it's brutal, it's mysterious, and it's full of strange threads that might connect to things that most people never even think to question. And hey, maybe that is the point. Maybe we're meant to look closer at things that maybe we don't think we're supposed to. So this is me, Rye the Codega, signing off. And as always, thanks for listening. Keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always